Hey everyone, just a really quick video to describe a little bit more about an auscultatory gap that you may get when you're taking a blood pressure. So we typically see these sometimes with hypertension, if someone's really hypertensive, but we can see it sometimes with, there has been tied to atherosclerosis potentially, really stenotic arteries. But why we need you to be aware of these, what we want you to know is that we have to make sure that we're actually going high enough on our blood pressures that we don't miss the actual systolic pressure. So if you look on here, the first, if you're actually just pumping up the blood pressure cuff and you don't actually check your brachial artery when you lose that brachial artery on the way up as you're pumping, you want to, when you lose that brachial artery, you want to go about 30 millimeters higher than that, or 30 millimeters of mercury higher than that, so that you're not missing that auscultatory gap. If you don't do it, then what can happen is in this diagram here that you're seeing, as you can see, if you were to just pump up to say, I don't know, 180, 200, you might, as you release your cuff and you're listening, you start hearing that beat at about 180 systolic. And you may think mistakenly then that is your systolic pressure. As you release, it comes down, 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 down. And here at about 110 is where your diastolic pressure is sitting. So 180 over 110 isn't a great pressure. We would probably be a bit concerned about that. But we would certainly be more concerned if we actually knew what the pressure was. If we had decided to actually palpate the brachial artery while we're pumping that cuff up, then we probably would have maybe lost that actual pulse around 210. And then we'd know that we actually needed to go higher than that, so maybe 210, 290. So we're going to go beyond that. And then we would actually pump up to about 250. The patient would probably be not feeling great on their arm at that point. We'd be pumping up pretty high. But then we would actually not miss that first sound potentially at 240. So if their pressure is actually 240 over 110, not that 180 over 110 is any better, but 240 over 110, we don't like pressures that high. So that would give us an accurate blood pressure. So this is why when you're being taught to do your blood pressures, you are being taught to kind of feel for that brachial pulse, palpate it, and then as you're pumping up, either depending on your program, they may teach you to pump up first, find out where you lose it, deflate, and then go 30 higher than that. Some will teach you to palpate the brachial artery as you're pumping up the thing, and when you lose it, then you're going to go 30 higher than that, and then you're going to take your blood pressure on the way down. So it can kind of mess around a little bit with what your valid blood pressure is if you're not taking this into account. So make sure you kind of use one method or the other in order to make sure that you get an accurate blood pressure to account for this gap. Thanks for listening.